On today's show, the Atlanta Hawks have stayed quite busy since the draft finished up on Wednesday evening. We'll get into what they've been doing transactionally, plus a look at the spending power for the offseason and schedules galore, including Summer League, preseason, etc. It's all coming up right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2271 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Friday evening here in late June. And today's podcast sponsored by the folks at Odoo. Great organizations win because operations matter. That's why you should try Odoo right now. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. And of course, the draft whirlwind is kind of now behind us for the Hawks. The rookies for the team, the trio of rookies, were introduced in formal fashion on Thursday morning. And now it's basically on to free agency, trade stuff, speculation, summer league on the horizon for the Hawks, and plenty to get to. If you are new to the podcast, welcome aboard. And please make us your first listen each and every day. But we'll dive in today to a couple of transactional items for the Hawks. And then later on, look at the current kind of spending power and the cap and the tax, all that stuff for the Hawks. And then end up later on in the show looking at Summer League, some of these scheduling announcements that have been happening in the last couple of days for planning purposes, because, spoiler alert, the Hawks play a Summer League game in basically 1 week from right now. So we're getting very, very close to more basketball, at least in, it doesn't like count, but it's official basketball to some degree. So we'll dive in now to the Hawks making a couple of transactional moves in the last couple of days. It's the last episode that I did after the second round of the NBA draft. And one of those things is that Mo Gueye had a team option decision. The Hawks had until Monday actually to decide on Mo's team option for next season. They went ahead though on Thursday and picked it up, which is not surprising in any way, shape, or form. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't matter. It's certainly a notable transaction. And I would just say that it's by far the most likely outcome the entire time was a straight option pickup for the Hawks. It is very cheap. It's $2.4 million roughly for Mo Gueye next season. That's functionally the league minimum for a player of his service time. And because of that, and the reality is Mo is at least a rotation caliber player. He is a flawed player. His offense is certainly a work in progress, but he's already a above average to really good defender who's versatile and he can shoot a little bit, all that stuff. And there was basically, I would say, legitimately no chance at all that they were going to waive him. Even if they didn't want to keep him, they could have picked up the option and were able to probably to trade him if they wanted to in the coming days. So basically the choice was, hey, do you want to pick up the option like they're going to, as I'm reporting right now? Or the other option is I could have extended him between basically the end of the season and June 30th, which is a couple days from now, or they could just decline the option, but only to make him a restricted free agent and then basically allow for a negotiation on a multi-year deal that they had match rights on at some point in time. So it's not impossible, but extensions as cheap as the one that Mo probably would be in line for are pretty rare. And it's not he's not somebody that you want to pay like 8 figures a season to right now. He's a good player for sure. Like I think he's worth more than the minimum, basically, given his defense, his production, his age, all that stuff. But I don't think he's like a guy that's going to have this like bidding war across the league if he was a free agent. So the easy thing here to do is just pick up the option, figure it out later, which is what they're going to do. Of course, next summer, a year from now, he'll be a free agent. That's notable for sure. But also, look, some of this is kind of undeniable to at least talk about. The Hawks have a lot of front court options all of a sudden. Obviously, Jalen Johnson, their best player, is a power forward by trade. The Hawks also just drafted a guy that I would describe as a combo big in Zuby Ejiofor in the first round. They drafted another mostly center, but certainly maybe could play a little bit of 4 at some point in the future in Henry Vesar, and then Asa Newell, first round pick from last year. And then, of course, Jalen and even Kuminga, whose best position, in my opinion, is a power forward spot as well. So it's crowded there. That's Mo's best spot. He can play the 5 a little bit too, which he did last year. I think he's a little bit light for that, but he certainly can play there. But regardless, I think the projection I've had the entire time was an option pickup for this. And that's going to be what happens. So no surprise, but certainly worth noting and adding to the cap sheet for later on in the summer. The other one that happened in the last couple of days is Buddy Hield. And if you listen to the last episode I did on Wednesday night, breaking down the Vesar trade and where things are for the Hawks, the most urgent deadline after the draft was Buddy Hield's guarantee date. So Buddy's contract is actually for about $9.6 million for next year, but only $3 million of that is guaranteed. The rest of it was scheduled to become guaranteed if he was on the roster by the end of Thursday. But basically, the Hawks chose to move things back. In the meantime, though, like the decision's always been this. The Hawks will either waive Buddy Hield, most likely, and basically eat the $3 million of money that he was guaranteed, or they will trade him. I think Buddy can play a little bit still, but there's just no way he would get anywhere near that almost $10 million figure in free agency. I think he'd be a minimum player probably somewhere else. His minimum is a decent amount of change. It's $3+ million. But anyway, I think both sides of this negotiation, Hield side, his agency, the Hawks, understand that reality. So if you listen to the pod 2 days ago, I did note, though, there was an alternate scenario that could happen if both sides mutually agreed to push the date back a little bit. The Hawks have done this a few times in the last half decade, famously with Bruno Fernando. They had a similar situation where he was non-guaranteed, pushback, etc. But that's what they're going to do, at least for right now. So Chris Haynes broke this news first. I confirmed that shortly thereafter on Thursday. There was some original uncertainty on what the date was going to be pushed back to, but actually I was the first and I think the only one so far to report that the new date is June 28th, which is Sunday. I had that on good authority. Also, it confirmed that the Hawks did not give Buddy any additional guaranteed money. Occasionally that will happen where a guy who kind of agrees to this will have a little bit of extra money coming his way, but not here. Still $3 million is the guarantee for Buddy Hield. So simply put, on the Hawks side, there is no downside at all to pushing this back, essentially. It's all good for them. They have the same choice they already had with either basically waiving him or trading him, but they just simply get more time to decide with no penalty at all. So on the Hawks side, very obviously an easy yes. On Buddy's side, I got questions about like why Buddy agreed to this. And it's a reasonable question for sure. I think part of this is that Buddy's camp realizes that he's probably in for the minimum somewhere else if he gets waived. And that $3 million is coming no matter what. So that's very helpful. But if they agree to push the deadline back, there is, I would say, at least more of a chance he gets traded. And in the vast majority of trade scenarios involving Buddy Hield in the next couple of days, he would get more of that money guaranteed to be salary matching. Because if he gets traded, he counts only what is guaranteed on the deal in a salary matching capacity. So if he gets traded and a deal for like a $9 million player coming back, you have to guarantee more of his money to make that deal happen. That's the short, non-nerdy explanation. Also, there's definitely a world in which Buddy gets put in a trade with other players from the Hawks. For instance, like someone like Kispert or Richiche or even Kuminga. But I'll just say that that's possible too as the Hawks work on some stuff. So one of the questions I got was like, hey, does this mean that Buddy's definitely going to get traded? No, it does not mean that. What it means is the Hawks know that they are at least incentivized to keep their options open as long as they can to kind of put Buddy in a trade, and it's at least possible. So if you're Buddy's side, you want to be in line for some more money if you can. And even if that's only a small chance, it is totally reasonable for his agent and the player to give the Hawks a few more days to make a trade happen in the event that he suddenly like kind of falls backwards into an extra $4 million, something like that. So that's very possible. Last thing, Buddy and the Hawks have a good relationship. He was a good locker room guy for the Hawks at the end of the season, kind of like mentoring Zachary Richiche, for example. Like he was great at media day, exit interviews after the season was over. Everyone likes Buddy, everyone. And they're working together because they're basically just being adults. Buddy and his team know what's going on. The team, as the Hawks side, know what's going on. And it's not worth anything to kind of be antagonistic. There's even a world where like maybe they waive him and then he looks around and resigns. I mean, I'd be kind of surprised by that, but it's not impossible. So regardless, that's the situation. And the new deadline, again, is the end of the day on Sunday. So that's why I'm recording this now. Give you a couple of days to look at this, and we'll have more if the resolution does come by the end of the weekend. All right, everybody, in a second, I'll dive into some of the latest spending power calculations because there's been a lot of activity and a lot of questions about what the Hawks can maybe do in free agency. We'll get into all that and more in just one moment. There are more live events than there ever have been right now, and they're really just worth seeing, to be honest with you. When it comes to games or concerts, comedy shows, festivals, the hard part is not actually deciding what you want to attend or just find something to attend. It's actually getting the tickets instead. Between long wait times, processes and checkout screens that are actually just confusing to navigate, and of course, these surprise fees, buy tickets sometimes feel actually harder than it should. That's why so many fans are turning to folks at Gametime. The app is built to make actually buy tickets simple with upfront pricing, seat views before you actually buy the tickets, and exclusive savings opportunities to actually help you to get the events that you want without any of the usual hassle. And my biggest pet peeve in ticket buying is when you think you actually found a great deal somewhere else, get all the way to the end of the process, start to check out, and suddenly the final price looks totally different and it's always higher. But with Gametime, take all the uncertainty out of the process. I actually love that. When you actually is what you're going to see, the way you're going to pay with Gametime. That's awesome. And you take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every single type of event with the folks at the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app right now, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that account right now, create that account with Gametime and use that code. It's LOCKEDON for Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Gametime app today. Get your daily Atlanta Hawks fix completely ad-free by joining the Everydayer Club today. Start your 7-day free trial right now and get closer to your team without the interruptions. Click the link in the show notes right now. Go to lockedonhawks.supercast.com to claim your free trial and join us, making your first listen each and every day. Check us out and join the Everydayer Club today. I got a lot of questions in the last few days since the, I would say, flurry of activity around the Hawks. And this is basically, 'tis the season. It's that time of year right now with transactions. But the Hawks made the McCollum re-signing / extension, the Aaron Wiggins trade, and now they've made 3 draft picks. And like the questions coming in are some variation of what can the Hawks still do in free agency? What is their spending power? Like that kind of questioning cap-wise. Not everyone's a cap expert, nor do you have to be. But basically, like, what can they do? It's not just a trade, because obviously trades are part of this too. And that's, as I always say, they're a lot harder to project, and that makes it a difficult topic. I'm not the hugest fake trade fan with no intel, because it's just like kind of random, and I like to be at least practical. But the top line answer to what the Hawks can do is that basically one big decision looms over a lot of the stuff we'll talk about more in a second. There are trade considerations, but here's the rundown as it stands. And again, this is Friday evening, June 26th, as I'm recording this podcast. The deals are not signed yet, but we do know what Flemings and Ejiofor are going to make in their first rookie scale contracts. If you don't remember, first round picks are rookie scale subjects. So basically, where you're drafted dictates what you're going to make in the first 4 years of your career. At least the first 2 are guaranteed, then 2 team options. Flemings will be making about $7.3 million in year one. Ejiofor about $3.4 million in year one, because he's, of course, drafted much later. Add them together, and you're slightly less than $11 million total to the Hawks cap sheet. That does count. But if you recall, the Hawks did project to pick at those spots. They didn't move. So this was already on the books, at least as a de facto holding place. I'll put Vesar to the side because he's going to sign something, either a 2-way or a minimum or whatever, but it won't affect what the Hawks do too much because it'll be really cheap, which is why it's not a huge deal right now. Will he be on a 2-way? Standard deal. There was reporting out there that I heard that maybe he doesn't want to sign a 2-way, but maybe he will. I don't know what's going to happen there, but regardless, that will be very cheap. So since basically the last 2 weeks, the Hawks added McCollum, Aaron Wiggins, Flemings, Ejiofor, and they picked up Mo Gabe's team option. That's what's already happened. That puts the Hawks, so they already had 7 players on the books coming into this offseason for about $116 in terms of millions of dollars. You added McCollum for $21 million, Wiggins for almost 9, almost 11 for the 2 first-round picks, 2.5 or so for Mo Gabe, and for now, I'm going to put the $3 million guarantee that Buddy Hield has on the books. Maybe they'll be traded, keep that in mind, but I'll be pegging that for now. All of that takes you to about $163 million for 12 players. And in order of how much they're going to make this year, those 12 guys are Jalen, Dyson, McCollum, Okongwu, Nikhil, Kispert, Richeche, Wiggins, Flemings, Ejiofor, Asa Newell, and Mo Gabe. So the salary cap is a 165. You're basically already there with 12 guys plus Buddy's $3 million. That does not include a single penny for Kuminga, for Jock Landale, or anybody else. Keep that in mind. If you throw in Kuminga's team option for $24.3 million, you go from 163 up to about 187. The tax is 201, which the Hawks are permitted to exceed. I think it will surprise me if they do, but they can go over that. But operating in the world where I think they're probably going to be under the tax, Kuminga's option could be picked up, and they had still probably have like 10 million or so of the mid-level they could probably spend and stay under the tax. We'll see, but something like that. The Hawks not used the mid-level last year in full. They did use part of it on Luke Kennard. Keep that in mind. So we've seen that playbook before. If you want to use the full mid-level, You have to have Kuminga come back on a smaller number in a long-term deal, or you have to shed money elsewhere by trading somebody else out to save money or declining the option for Kuminga or whatever, something in between. So outside of trade considerations that we are not privy to on the outside of that building for obvious reasons, the biggest decision that will impact a lot that's still remaining is Kuminga. So McCollum and Kuminga were linked all summer, but now we know McCollum. We know they made 2 draft picks, and now it's Kuminga and how they proceed with that. So if you are jumping in now for the first time, forgive me if you're a returning listener. I've already explained this before, but there are essentially 4 pathways with Kuminga. Number 1, they could just pick up the option and have him play on that contract. Totally reasonable. Is he worth $24 million? Most people don't think so, that I have pegged around the league. I've kind of informally polled some people. Like, you get responses from like 10 million to 18 and 20. Most people would not say he's worth $24 million. With that said, there is a bump you get when it's a 1-year contract. So I would say similarly, McCollum probably isn't like in a vacuum a $21 million player, but it's a 1-year contract. And there's some appeal on that for long-term risk mitigation. So if they pick up Kuminga's option, it will be totally understandable. Is he worth that much in the vacuum? No, but like, he's already on your team. He already has bird rights, all those things. It's very natural. If it's a long-term deal, that's option. So option number 1, pick up the option. Number 2, the Hawks could try to negotiate a multi-year deal with Kuminga. Both sides know that there's team option hanging out there. The trouble is that requires a 2-way negotiation. So the Hawks might offer 3 for 45 to Kuminga, which is a totally fine contract. But if Kuminga's side wants 3 for 60, that's a pretty big swing, for example, or more. We don't really know, but that's at least possible. That's the second avenue. The third avenue is that they could trade Kuminga. It's hard to trade him once you pick up the option, although you could, maybe mid-season. That's also one of the parts here is like, maybe you pick him up and trade him later. They could trade him now, but we'll see on that front. And then the fourth one, I think it's probably the least likely, but we'll see. They could just decline the option and let him go. That's very possible as well. Or decline the option, and then he might see that there's markets not really there for him. You bring him back on a lower number later. We'll see on that front, but that's all notable to me. So that's the situation. They have to make a choice of some kind between now and Monday, and that will dictate a lot of other things, because if they have Kuminga locked in, they know what they can spend, what they can't, what they want to do overall. If he's not on the roster on that team option, or if they're negotiating or whatever, there's more flux. So that's the short version of that, but that will dictate a lot. And as I've said before on the show as well, there's a chance they trade Buddy Hield. That's on the radar. I think they could trade someone like Corey Kispert or Zachary Richichet, or even find a trade for Kuminga again. So if nothing else, we're going to learn a lot about the plans for the Hawks for the rest of the offseason by Monday, when Kuminga's option deadline arrives, and we'll already have known at least one more thing about Buddy Hields. So TBD, I know that's not the sexiest answer in the world, but I like to be realistic about what I know when I don't know. And no one outside the building knows what they're going to do with Kuminga, because I've asked around and no one's got a great read on that. You'll see varying opinions, and I totally get that, but I think it's just enough. If Kuminga's option was like 18 million, they'd probably pick it up and just like operate off of that. But 24 is just on the borderline where it's not a total automatic. And yeah, we'll find out. I know it went well. I mean, one more time on this, like some people think that I'm like super low on Kuminga. I'm really not. I think that his acquisition went totally fine. He gives them some stuff on their roster that they need, like the rim pressure, the athleticism, the free throw drawing is all very useful. He can defend at, it's in certain matchups very helpfully. He has that big physical frame as a kind of a combo forward type that they kind of need. On the other side, they got a lot of power forwards, and he is, for me anyway, his best position is power forward. He can play a little bit of the 3 as well. But yeah, there's just a lot of differing, contrasting opinions and factors in play. But what we do know one more time is that they will learn a lot. I'll learn a lot about what they're going to do in the next few days once they decide on Kuminga's option. All right, more to come in a second when it comes to summer league scheduling, preseason stuff. It's going to be very, very busy over the next few weeks, plus a brief look ahead at the final, the next couple of days and what's going to be coming for the Hawks. We'll get into all of that and more in just one moment. Running a business should not feel like you're trying to connect to much different systems. Actually, were never designed to work together. That includes like one app for accounting, another one for inventory, another one for sales. Somehow none of them actually talk to each other. That is where Odoo comes in. Odoo is the all-in-one business management software that brings every single part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory to marketing, everything in between, and it all works together in one place, helping your team to move faster, stay organized, and focus on growing the business instead of simply managing the software. And the best organizations know this. The success is not just about talent at all. It's about having everybody work together toward the same goal. And that's true in sports as well, just like it is in business. One thing that stands out to me always is how the best organizations get everybody pulling in the same direction. It's so important. Not just one player that's great, or a coach, or an executive, or a leader, or the owner, or anybody else in between. It is a coordinated effort across the entire organization that makes things successful. Great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo today. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's ODOO for Odoo. That's ODOO for Odoo. One more time, the place to go is odoo.com/lockedon. Missed calls and slow follow-ups are silent killers for your business. That's why money is left on the table, which you never want money left on the table. And sometimes people don't actually even realize it when things are moving the way that they're not supposed to be moving. That's why today's show is sponsored by the folks at Quo, spelled QUO. It's a business communication system that's built so you actually never miss a call ever. Quo helps businesses keep every conversation organized by letting your entire team manage calls and texts from one shared number. No more drop messages, no more missed opportunities, and no more disconnected communication of any kind. It's designed for how modern businesses actually operate. One part that I love about Quo is that everything lives in one clean thread. That includes calls and texts and voicemails, etc. The whole team sees the conversation, so nothing falls through the cracks. And the eye summaries are very helpful as well, saving serious time by logging calls, highlighting the next steps automatically for you. It makes your business feel more organized and more responsive. That's huge. Money is on the line. Always say hello with Quo. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnba. That's quo.com/lockedonnba, QUO.com/lockedonnba. All right, and one reason why I held this podcast until Friday evening is that I was hearing through the grapevine that the Summer League schedule was going to come out in full for Las Vegas on Friday. The league always waits till the draft is over to line up some matchups for TV purposes and such. That's why it's always a little bit later than you might want it to be. But now we know when the Hawks will be playing in Summer League. And by the way, this has been forgotten by a lot of people, that even today, the Hawks are going to Utah for Salt Lake City Summer League before they go to Vegas. So they're beginning their work way before a lot of other teams do in the summer. In fact, as you're listening or watching this on Saturday, the opener for the Hawks begins in 1 week. So if you're not at a big July 4th celebration for 250, you can watch basketball instead, like I'll be doing in Salt Lake City on July 4th. So the Hawks open on Saturday, July 4th in Utah against the Jazz, which, by the way, could be Darren Peterson, the number 2 overall pick. I will always say not every player and prospect plays in every game. So I understand the hype, but my guard's always up on Summer League games. But it could be Flemings versus Peterson on Saturday. We'll see. That game's at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And then the Hawks have the Sunday off in Utah. Then they play Monday, July 6th against the Thunder, which is Adai Mara and Bennett Sturts, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And they play Tuesday, July 7th against the Grizzlies, which of course could be Cam Boozer and Kareem Lopez at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So 3 games in 4 days in Utah. Then the team and me fly separately from Salt Lake to Las Vegas. And now Vegas' schedule is out. So they will open on Thursday, July 9th in Vegas. It's the first day of Vegas Summer League, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time against the Spurs on ESPN2. That's actually the second scheduled game of the entire Vegas Summer League, so they're going to get probably some extra attention. It'll be fresh, and it's the only afternoon game for the Hawks, that Thursday, July 9th in the desert. Then Saturday, July 11th against Brooklyn at 8 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN. That's their prime time, biggest promoted game probably, and the one that Hawks fans I know are circling because it's going to be Kingston Flemings, maybe against Michael Brown Jr. That's probably the appeal and why it's on ESPN in prime time, because it's 2 top 8 picks who are guards facing off with one another if they're both still playing at that point. So we'll see. Then Monday, July 13th, they play Boston at 6 o'clock on Amazon Prime Video. And then their last scheduled game in Vegas is Thursday, July 16th against Memphis, who they will have just played a week before in Utah. That one's at 8 o'clock on Amazon Prime Video. They will play at least 5 games, but only 4 are scheduled. It's always like a wait and see based on results, when and who and all that stuff. They will face off for a 5th game. They will have 5 games in Vegas, so they will play at least 8 times. People keep asking me this. I would lean on the side of projecting that no one between Kingston Flemings, Zubi Ejiofor, Asa Newell plays every single game. That's a lot of basketball in a short period of time. And look, the Hawks wanted this. They don't have to go to Utah. They're choosing to. But the first time since 2018 when they went with Trae Young and John Collins back then, I know when they went on that trip, I covered the second part of that in Vegas, and guys are ready to go home by the middle. Like it's a long, long slog, but they're choosing that to kind of get guys more opportunities to play, which will be interesting. And people keep asking me who's going to play as well. The roster will be out at some point by the middle of the week, I would say, if not earlier. I am quite confident we'll see at least the 3 draft picks, Flemings, Ejiofor, and Vesar. Asa Newell is scheduled to play as well. Those 4 guys, you're already working with a very interesting Summer League roster with just those 4, because a lot of teams don't even have 4 guys, and the Hawks have 4 real guys to look at. I also would say Keyshawn Gilbert, who was on a 2-way last year for the Hawks, is 22 years old, like a talented guard who should be in Summer League, I think. I could see Kobe Johnson, Jalen's brother, who was good in College Park last year. I know Eli Njai has been around the facility rehabbing after suffering the injury last year on a 2-way contract, but they like him and he could be around for that. I know at least one of the non-roster invites is out there now. The Hawks gave Isaac McNeely an Exhibit 10 contract, so he projects to be on the Summer League roster as well. 6'4" guard out of Louisville, played at Virginia before that. He's a big-time shooter, 41% on 800 attempts or so in college. Gets them up big-time, 6'4" guard. Like it's definitely the profile of a normal undrafted player with a real appeal in that he does one thing super well, and that's shoot. We'll see the rest of it up close and personal in Utah and Vegas. I know Jeremy Woo, for instance, at ESPN had him like in the 80s in his draft projection, which isn't crazy, but it's a guy that you got for nothing. So we'll see. And then the last thing, I'm laughing because the Hawks kind of pulled a shocker this week. They announced their preseason schedule for next year. Now, I'm surprised because it's not a huge deal, of course, but didn't announce this until mid-August last year. I can't recall them ever putting out the schedule for the preseason this early, but hey, I'll take it for planning purposes. The whole league schedule usually gets announced in August for the whole season. Obviously, we'll touch on that when it comes, but they are playing 5 games this year in the exhibition slate. Usually it's between 4 and 6. Last year was 4. They're playing 2 home games and 3 road games this year. They open things up on October 5th. After Summer League, the next time we'll see players in Hawks jerseys in a game setting is that October 5th opener in the exhibition slate. So keep that in mind. That's Memphis at home. And they also play at home against Oklahoma City on October 12th. So they have 2 kind of dry runs at home to get everything going. Then they have 3 road games at San Antonio on the 8th of October, at Indiana on the 10th of October, and then at Dallas on the 16th. And also what that tells me is that having the game that late, that the regular season will not start until the following week. So in recent years, they've been starting the season in the NBA with a Tuesday doubleheader, and then most of the rest of the league starts on Wednesday. So if that holds, and it's an if, you could be looking at like an October 21, 22 opener for the Hawks. We'll find out in August, but keep that in mind for now. So lots of dates. I understand that. Not the best radio / podcast in the world, but they literally put out 3 schedules within like 3 days. So it was kind of worth at least throwing that out there on the podcast. I know most people will be dialed into Vegas the most, but look, if I'm being honest, the matchups and maybe the talents, depending on how these teams handle this, could be better in Utah, which is interesting. If you were around in 2018, I'll never forget this. There was a large contingent of people with the hottest, worst takes imaginable about Trae Young. Trae struggled in Utah, and it was like he was going to be out of the league in a matter of days. Instead, he's going to maybe be in the Hall of Fame one day. So it went okay with him. But I would just keep a guard up, obviously, with all that stuff. I think the plan is, before I go to Utah, I'm planning to do a Summer League preview on the pod. Hopefully Glenn can join me for that because he's usually my favorite guest for that particular podcast. But we'll dive into all that stuff, get you ready for it. But the roster will be out in a few days, and there'll be plenty of guys to pay attention to. I once covered a Summer League where the only roster guy was Mike Muscala, who I liked Mike, but that was it. This is not that. This is there's a lottery pick in Kings of Lemmings. There's multiple other first round picks from Asa and Zuby, etc. Lot to watch. And as a reminder before we get out of here, dates. So right now, as I'm recording this, it's 26th. Saturday's the 27th. Sunday, the 28th, is Buddy Hield's new deadline. Monday, the next day, is Jonathan Kuminga's option deadline. Tuesday, the 30th, is when free agency begins, the evening of Tuesday. So 3 straight days with a huge thing for the Hawks. And then we'll get a Summer League roster at some point around there. And then the first game in Summer League is a week from Saturday. So we are here. This is a busy stretch. We're going to all miss it by the middle of July when things slow down a lot. But right now, it is wall-to-wall every day. I'm not going to have a pod on Saturday unless something happens. If something happens, you'll see me on this podcast or you'll hear me on this podcast. But at nothing else, I'll have reactions to what they do or don't do with Buddy, what they do or don't do with Kuminga, free agency preview stuff, and we'll dive into all kinds of things over the course of the next week. So please go ahead and subscribe right now. Anywhere you find your podcast, search Locked On Hawks. Anywhere you find your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Follow the show on X/Twitter at Locked On Hawks. Follow me there at BT Rowland. Follow me on Blue Sky, BT Rowland, and follow my non-podcast coverage of the Hawks, which is found at patreon.com/BT Rowland. Everybody, please forgive this road game I was playing on this Friday evening. We'll be back in the home setup in a couple of days, and stay tuned. We'll see you all next time.